Welcome back to the Real Life English podcast. You can do everything right. You can communicate clearly, never go to bed angry, remember every single anniversary.
Right.
And yet, statistically, there is still this massive chance that you will wake up one day, look across the breakfast table, and just realize the person sitting next to you feels like a complete stranger.
It is terrifying.
It is a terrifying thought, but it happens every single day. Have you ever wondered how that actually works? Like, how does a profound, life-altering love just vanish?
Well, it is arguably one of the most painful mysteries of the human experience.
Yeah.
And I think the most common misconception is that love shatters like a glass window.
Yeah.
One big impact, and it is just gone.
Right, like a massive betrayal or a huge fight.
Exactly. But when we look at the psychological research and the observational data, that is almost never the case. Love does not shatter. It evaporates.
Oh, wow. It evaporates.
Yeah. It is this slow, silent fading process that happens over months, sometimes years. And often, neither person even realizes it is happening until, well, the connection is already gone.
That slow evaporation is exactly what we are going to explore today. We are taking a very careful, deliberate journey into the subtle ways human bonds change over time.
And this is so important to understand.
It really is. Our goal for you, our listener, is to unpack the mechanics behind this fading. We want to keep the pace nice and calm so we can really look at the psychology, the biology, and the daily habits that quietly build walls between two people.
Because understanding how love disappears might just be the only way to figure out how to make it stay.
Exactly. So where do we even begin?
To start understanding that process, we actually have to look at the very beginning of a relationship. The source material points to a massive biological and psychological trap that almost everyone falls into.
What kind of trap?
Is the belief that the way love feels on day one is how love is supposed to feel forever.
Oh, right. The early days. People often describe new love as being like a fireworks show, you know? Loud, bright, intense.
It is very intense.
But I actually want to use a biological analogy instead because I think it explains the mechanism a bit better for our listener.
Okay, let us hear it.
Think about what happens when you walk into a room where someone has sprayed a very strong, beautiful perfume.
Oh, I like this.
In the first 10 minutes, that scent is all you can smell. It completely takes over your senses, it is powerful, and it is unavoidable.
That is a highly accurate comparison for new love. Because when you first meet someone you are deeply attracted to, your brain is just flooded with specific chemicals.
Like what?
Dopamine, adrenaline, and cortisol. Your heart beats faster, your palms might sweat. You have this intense, almost obsessive focus on this new person.
So biologically, your nervous system is in a state of high alert.
Exactly. You are literally intoxicated by the novelty of the experience, just like your nose is overwhelmed by the new perfume in that room.
But if you stay in that room with the perfume for 2 hours, what happens?
You stop smelling it.
Right. The scent does not actually disappear from the air, but your brain stops registering it. Your nervous system adapts to the environment and says, well, okay, this is normal now. We do not need to pay maximum attention to this anymore.
Which is a process we call sensory adaptation.
Sensory adaptation, let us make sure that is clear. It just means your senses get used to things.
Yes. And emotional adaptation works the exact same way. The intense, thrilling chemical rush of early love simply cannot last. It biologically must end.
Because it would be exhausting, right?
Completely. If your brain stayed in that state of high alert dopamine production forever, you would never be able to focus on your job or your friends or your responsibilities.
You might just burn out.
You would. So over time, the brain transitions, the adrenaline drops, and the brain replaces those exciting chemicals with different ones.
Oxytocin.
Yes, oxytocin, which is a chemical that promotes calm, quiet attachment. It is a very healthy shift.
But this transition, from the exciting dopamine to the calm oxytocin, this is where the first major disaster strikes a relationship.
It really is.
Because people do not understand biology. They feel the calm, and instead of recognizing it as a healthy, mature stage of attachment, they panic.
They absolutely panic. They look at their partner, they realize their heart is not beating wildly anymore, and they make a catastrophic mental leap.
What do they think?
They think, I do not feel the intense excitement, therefore, I must be falling out of love. Something is fundamentally broken.
Wow. So they confuse the end of the chemical high with the end of the relationship itself.
Precisely.
Let us explore that panic for a moment, just to make it real for the listener. What does that actually look like in a living room on a Tuesday night?
That is a good question.
Like, if a person falsely believes that feeling calm equals a lack of love, How does that belief start to poison the relationship?
Well, it creates a tremendous amount of unnecessary anxiety. The person starts looking for problems where none actually exist.
So they might become overly critical.
Yes. Or they start demanding proof of love. They might say things like, you never look at me the same way, or we never do anything crazy and spontaneous anymore.
They are desperately trying to force the relationship back into that high stress, high excitement phase.
Exactly.
Going back to our analogy, they are trying to spray more perfume in the room because they think the room is empty.
That is a perfect way to put it. And
Yeah.
what happens is they introduce instability. By constantly questioning the relationship simply because it has become peaceful, they create real stress.
They make their partner feel like they're constantly failing.
Yes. And this unnecessary panic, which is born entirely from a misunderstanding of how human emotions evolve, can actually initiate the very breakdown they are so afraid of.
That is tragic. So we have established that the natural calming of the nervous system is not the real enemy here.
No, it is not.
Losing the initial intensity does not mean the love is dead, it just means the relationship is maturing. But if that quietness isn't the problem, what actually breaks the bond? Like, if we survive the transition to a calm partnership, what is the next trap waiting for us?
The next trap is what our sources identify as the comfort trap. And this is where the danger of inaction really comes in.
The comfort trap. Let us break that down.
Well, once the intense chemical drive fades,
Mm-hmm.
maintaining the connection requires conscious effort. But very often, people replace that early effort with profound laziness.
I want to push back on the word laziness for a second,
Oh,
because I hear people use that word and it always sounds, I don't know, a bit judgmental to me.
fair enough
I
then.
mean, I know couples who are both working 60-hour weeks. They are raising children, managing a household. By the time they sit down at 9 o'clock at night, they are completely biologically and mentally depleted.
That is very true.
So, are we unfairly blaming people for being exhausted? Like, is it really laziness, or is it just the crushing weight of modern life?
That is a very fair distinction to make. Let us replace the word laziness with a biological concept. Let us call it atrophy.
Atrophy. Okay, for our listener, let us define that.
Think about human muscles. If you do not actively lift weights or use a specific muscle group, your body does not just keep that muscle strong, just in case you might need it someday.
Right, because that would be a waste of energy.
Exactly. Instead, the body slowly reabsorbs the muscle tissue. The muscle atrophies. It shrinks.
Because the body assumes, well, if we are not using this, we must not need it.
Right. And the human brain treats social and emotional connections the exact same way.
Really, like a muscle.
Yes. In the early days of a relationship, you're constantly exercising the connection muscle. You ask your partner deep questions, you observe what makes them smile, you plan thoughtful dates.
You are actively investing energy into the bond.
Exactly.
We sometimes call that the interview phase of dating. You know, you are trying to prove you are the best candidate for the job.
But eventually you get the job.
Right.
You enter the tenured employee phase, you feel secure, you feel comfortable, and because you feel secure, you stop doing the active work.
You stop exercising the connection muscle.
Yes. And just like physical muscle, if you stop putting active energy into the bond, the emotional connection begins to atrophy. It shrinks.
I want to use another simple analogy here to picture this comfort trap. It is a lot like a houseplant.
A houseplant. Okay, let us hear it.
When you first buy a beautiful new houseplant, you pay so much attention to it. You water it every single day, you check the soil, you make sure it is getting the absolute perfect amount of sunlight in the window.
You are highly invested in keeping it alive.
Right. But over time, you get so used to seeing it sitting there in the corner of the room that it just blends into the background.
You get comfortable with it.
Exactly. You get so comfortable that you simply forget to water it. You do not mean to hurt it. You are not angry at the plant, but you stop putting in the effort until one day you look over and all the leaves are falling off.
That is a brilliant analogy.
Yeah.
You did not attack the plant, you just starved it of the necessary input.
So let us ground this in a very practical daily example for human relationships. Because it is rarely about grand romantic gestures, is it? It is not about buying expensive jewelry or planning huge vacations.
No, the atrophy happens in the tiny 10-second interactions.
It almost entirely happens in micro interactions. Let us look at how a couple greets each other at the end of the day.
Okay, that is a great example.
In the first year of a relationship, when one partner walks through the door, what does the other partner do?
Well, early on, they typically stop what they are doing. They physically turn their body toward the door, they make eye contact, they smile, and they ask how the day went.
That takes maybe 10 seconds?
Yes, but it requires active, focused energy. It tells the other person, you are a priority and I see you.
And what does that look like 5 years later when the comfort trap has fully set in, when the muscle has atrophied?
5 years later, one partner walks through the door, the other partner is sitting on the couch looking at their phone or watching a screen. They do not look up. They do not turn their body. They simply throw out a generic question like, how was work? While their eyes remain glued to the screen.
The words are technically the same, the question was asked.
Yes.
But the interaction is totally empty.
Because the physical attunement is gone. The energy is gone. And the person walking through the door feels that. They feel slightly invisible.
Now, doing that once does not destroy a relationship, right?
No, doing it once is just a tired Tuesday. But doing that every single day for 3 years, that is emotional atrophy. The connection is literally starved of oxygen.
Neither person is actively trying to hurt the other. Like we said earlier, they might genuinely just be tired from a long day.
But the result is exactly the same. The bond weakens.
And when you stop tuning into those small moments, when you stop looking up from your phone to read your partner's face, you lose the ability to understand them.
You do.
Which naturally leads us to the next massive failure point discussed in our sources. When active effort drops, communication is the very first system to crash.
Communication breakdowns are essentially the central nervous system failure of a relationship.
The central nervous system failure, that is a strong way to put it.
It is. But again, we have to clarify what this actually means. Because when people hear communication breakdown, they picture a couple screaming at each other in the kitchen, throwing plates.
Right, they picture massive, dramatic fights.
But the research shows that falling out of love is rarely caused by the loud fights. It is caused by the quiet silences.
The quiet silences.
Yes, it is caused by the accumulation of hundreds of tiny, unresolved misunderstandings.
Let us think about how those small misunderstandings accumulate. I have an analogy for this one, too.
All right.
It is like having a tiny pebble in your shoe.
Oh, yeah.
One small pebble is annoying, right?
Yeah.
But you can keep walking. You tell yourself, it is not worth stopping and taking my shoe off. I will just deal with it.
Because stopping takes effort.
Exactly. But if you keep walking and more pebbles get in and you never stop to take them out eventually, the pain makes it completely impossible to walk together.
That makes perfect sense. In the technology world, there is a similar concept called software bugs.
Software bugs. Okay, explain that for our listener.
A software bug is a tiny error in the code of an application. One single bug will not crash your computer. It might just make a font look strange or make a button load a millisecond slower.
It is a minor annoyance, like the pebble.
Right. So the programmers ignore it because fixing it takes time. They prioritize keeping the system moving forward rather than stopping to fix the underlying code.
But over years of updates, those tiny bugs pile up.
Exactly. Hundreds of them, then thousands of them. They start interacting with each other in unpredictable ways. And then one day you try to open the application and the entire system crashes. It cannot function anymore.
And it wasn't one big virus that killed it.
No.
It was the sheer weight of thousands of ignored tiny errors.
That is a brilliant framework for understanding unresolved relationship conflict. A small misunderstanding is just a software bug.
Give me an example of a relationship software bug.
For example, your partner makes a sarcastic joke at a dinner party that embarrasses you slightly. It stings, but it is not a massive betrayal.
So you calculate the cost. You think to yourself, well, if I bring this up on the drive home, it will probably start an argument. We are both tired. I just want peace tonight. I will let it go.
And that is the crucial moment right there. You choose temporary, false peace over long-term clarity. You swallow your voice.
You do not address the bug in the system.
Right. You do not take the pebble out of your shoe. But here's the problem. The human brain does not simply delete emotional injuries just because you chose not to speak about them.
The brain keeps a record.
Always. The resentment gets stored in the background.
So that is one bug. But then next week, they forget to pick up the groceries they promised to get. You swallow it again, another bug.
Yes.
And then they dismiss a worry you have about your career, another bug.
And this is where the profound feeling of being unheard begins to take root in a person's mind.
Unheard. Let us dissect what being unheard actually means neurologically. Because it does not mean your partner is deaf to the physical sounds coming out of your mouth, does it?
No, it means you feel a lack of emotional mirroring.
Emotional mirroring. Let us break that down for our listener. What is that?
Well, human beings have specialized neurons in their brains called mirror neurons.
Okay.
When you tell a sad story, A healthy, connected partner will naturally reflect that sadness in their face and their tone. They literally mirror your emotional state.
So I look sad, they look sad.
Yes, and this signals to your brain, I am safe. This person understands my internal world.
But when misunderstandings pile up and distance grows, that mirroring stops.
It does. You might say, I am deeply overwhelmed and stressed about my mother's health. And your partner, while looking at the television, just says, I am sure she will be fine. Do not worry so much.
Wow. They
Yeah.
gave an answer, but they totally missed the emotional frequency.
Exactly. They did not mirror the distress, and the result of that is devastating.
Devastating how?
Your brain registers that as a failure of safety. You feel entirely alone in your experience, even though there's a human being sitting 2 feet away from you.
That is so lonely.
It is. And over time, as this happens repeatedly, you subconsciously decide that sharing your inner world is pointless or even painful. So you stop sharing.
You build a wall, the system crashes.
Yes.
It is the ultimate paradox. By avoiding small conflicts to protect the relationship today, you absolutely guarantee the destruction of the relationship tomorrow.
You are basically trading short-term discomfort for long-term emotional death.
Okay, let us take this a step further. Let us imagine a couple that actually does this well.
Okay, a healthy couple.
Yeah. They do not swallow their feelings. They address the bugs in the software. They communicate constantly. Is it still possible for them to fall out of love?
It is.
Because our sources highlight another phenomenon, the reality of growing apart.
Yes, it is entirely possible to grow apart, even with perfect communication. Because even if you are communicating perfectly, the content of what you are communicating might reveal that you are no longer compatible.
Because humans change.
Exactly. Humans are not static creatures. We evolve over the years.
But how does that actually work in practice? This is something that confuses a lot of people.
How so?
Well, you meet someone, right? You both love the exact same music, you both have the exact same political views, you both want to live in the city and focus on your careers. You are a perfect match.
Right.
How's it possible that 10 years later you suddenly want completely different lives?
The word suddenly is the trap there. It is never sudden. It is a very slow, glacial shift.
A slow shift.
Yes. To understand how two perfectly matched people become strangers, we have to look at the three invisible architects of human identity:
Which are?
priorities, values, and goals.
Let us define those clearly for the listener, because people often use those words interchangeably, but they mean very different things.
They are very different. Let us start with priorities. A priority is simply what requires your focus right now.
Right now. Okay.
So in your 20s, your priority might be paying off student debt. In your 30s, your priority might shift to having a child. Priorities naturally change based on the season of life you are in.
That makes perfect sense. What about values?
Values are much deeper. Values are your foundational moral framework.
Moral framework.
Yes. It is your belief about what is fundamentally good, right, and meaningful in life. For example, a core value might be security and stability, or it might be freedom and adventure.
Okay. And goals.
Goals are the specific, tangible outcomes you want to achieve based on those priorities and values, like, I want to become a senior director by age 40, or I want to retire to a cabin in the woods.
So how do these three things cause a couple to grow apart over time?
Imagine two people starting a long journey. They pull out a map. They are standing on the exact same starting point.
Okay, I am picturing it.
They both look north, they pick a destination, and they say, we share the same values and goals. Let us walk north together.
Sound good so far.
But human beings change based on experience. Maybe one partner reads a certain philosophy book, or experiences a trauma, or changes careers. And internally, their values subtly shift.
They change direction.
But they do not turn completely around and walk south. They just adjust their trajectory by 1 single degree to the east.
Just 1 degree. It is almost imperceptible.
Exactly. After taking 10 steps, a 1-degree difference means absolutely nothing. You are still shoulder to shoulder. You can still hold hands. You do not even notice the shift.
But relationships are not 10 steps long. They are tens of thousands of steps long.
And that is the terrifying math of growing apart. If you walk 1 degree apart for a decade, you eventually stop, look to your side, and realize your partner's not there.
Wow.
You look across the landscape, and they are miles away on a completely different mountain.
Give me a real-world example of this. How does a 1-degree shift in values actually destroy a marriage?
Let us take money, which is a very common one.
Okay, money.
When a couple gets married at 25, they might both share a core value of enjoying the moment. They spend their money on travel, dinners out, experiences, they agree perfectly.
They are walking north together.
Yes. But at age 32, one partner goes through a period of unemployment that terrifies them.
Oh, that makes sense. A trauma.
Right. And because of that experience, their core value shifts from enjoying the moment to financial security. It is a slight shift. At first, maybe they just want to cook at home more often instead of going out.
Which seems like a normal minor adjustment, just a 1-degree shift.
Exactly. But the other partner still holds the original value of enjoying the moment. As the years pass, the partner who values security wants to put every spare dollar into an emergency fund.
And the other partner.
The partner who values experience feels suffocated and restricted. They want to use that money for a vacation to create memories.
Ah, I see. Now they are fighting. And they think they're fighting about a vacation. But they aren't, are they?
No, they are not. They are fighting about their fundamental moral framework of what makes life worth living.
That is so deep.
It is. The partner wanting security views the vacation as reckless and dangerous. The partner wanting the vacation views the extreme saving as fearful and restrictive.
They literally no longer understand each other's view of the world.
They have grown apart. And if they cannot find a way to bridge that massive gap, the love will collapse under the weight of the cognitive dissonance.
Cognitive dissonance. Let us explain that term for our listener.
Yeah.
It is the mental discomfort of holding two conflicting realities at the exact same time.
Yes.
Like the reality of, I love this person, clashing with the reality of, I do not respect or agree with how this person chooses to live.
Exactly. It's very painful.
Mm-hmm.
And as those values shift and diverge, something else happens. The things you actually need from your partner also begin to change.
Which leads us into a massive section of our source material, the heavy, crushing weight of unmet needs.
Unmet needs are often cited as the final nail in the coffin of a relationship.
But the concept of needs can sound very clinical, like a checklist. I want to use an analogy here to help visualize what an unmet need actually does to a person's psychology over time.
Okay, what is the analogy?
It is like experiencing hypoxia on an airplane or driving a car with an empty fuel tank.
Hypoxia, a lack of oxygen to the brain. Break that down for us.
Sure. If an airplane loses cabin pressure very slowly, the passengers do not immediately gasp for air or feel like they are choking. Instead, the lack of oxygen hypoxia creeps up on them.
They just start to feel a little tired.
Exactly. Then they get slightly confused. They might feel a bit dizzy or sluggish. If the oxygen is not restored, they do not scream in pain. They simply go to sleep, and eventually their organs shut down.
That is a chilling but deeply accurate analogy for unmet emotional needs.
People think an unmet need feels like a sudden stab wound, but it doesn't. It feels like a slow drain of oxygen. You just feel a little more tired in the relationship, a little more lonely.
And eventually, your emotional organs just shut down.
Yes. Let us break down the specific types of oxygen a relationship requires, according to our sources.
There are three main categories:
Yeah.
emotional, physical, and practical needs.
We touched on emotional needs earlier with the mirroring, feeling supported and heard. But what about physical needs? This is not just about the frequency of romantic intimacy, is it?
Not at all. Romantic intimacy is a component, obviously, but the physical need we are talking about is deeply rooted in nervous system regulation.
Nervous system regulation.
Yes, human beings are primates. We regulate our stress levels through physical touch.
Like what kind of touch?
A hand resting on the back of your neck, a long hug when you are distressed, just sitting close enough on the couch that your shoulders touch.
These micro-touches actually change our brain chemistry, do they not?
They do. They lower cortisol levels and signal safety to the amygdala, which is the fear center of the brain. When a relationship slowly loses these non-sexual, physical points of contact, the individuals become touch-starved. Their baseline stress levels rise. They feel physically cold and psychologically isolated in their own home.
It is a biological deprivation, a lack of physical oxygen.
Exactly.
And what about practical needs? This is the third category. Sounds the least romantic, but I suspect it might be the cause of the most resentment.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Right.
Practical needs refer to the distribution of cognitive load and domestic labor.
Cognitive load. Let us define that.
It is the invisible work of managing a shared life. Who remembers that the car needs an oil change? Who notices that the milk is running low? Who plans the logistics for the holiday visit to the parents?
So it is the mental management, not just the physical chores.
Precisely. If one partner is carrying 90% of the cognitive load, if they are the manager of the household, and the other partner only does chores when specifically asked, The manager partner is not having their practical needs met.
Because they have to think of everything.
Right. They need a true teammate, an equal partner in the business of living. When they do not get that, they experience profound exhaustion.
Let us trace the psychological journey of a person who is experiencing this hypoxia. Whether their emotional, physical, or practical needs are being chronically ignored.
Okay.
How does their mind process that slow starvation over time?
It is a very predictable downward spiral. Stage 1 is simple disappointment.
Disappointment.
Yes, you ask your partner to take on some mental load, or you reach out for physical touch, and you are rebuffed or ignored. You feel sad, but you still have hope.
You tell yourself, maybe they just had a bad week, I will try again later.
Right. But if the pattern continues for months, you enter stage 2.
You just
Profound frustration and resentment. This is the stage where arguments usually peak. You are angry, you feel like you are yelling into a void, you feel fundamentally disrespected.
Because the resentment is the brain's way of saying, this situation is unfair and dangerous to my well-being.
Yes, exactly. But the human brain cannot sustain intense anger and resentment forever. It takes too much caloric and emotional energy.
So what happened?
If the needs remain unmet, the brain implements a defense mechanism to stop the pain. This is stage 3, emotional detachment, apathy.
Apathy. You just stop caring.
You stop asking for help, you stop reaching out for a hug, you stop trying to explain your feelings, you build an internal
But
fortress.
it hurts less.
Yes. You decide, I cannot rely on this person for my survival, so I will function independently while still living in the same house.
And that is the moment the oxygen runs out completely.
It is. The emotional bond is clinically dead, even if the marriage certificate is still valid.
That is deeply tragic. But I have a pressing question about the partner who is failing to meet these needs.
Right.
The one who is ignoring their requests. Why do they do it? Are people generally cruel? Like, do they want to starve their partner of oxygen?
In the vast majority of cases, absolutely not. It is rarely malicious.
Then why does it happen so often?
This brings us to one of the most fascinating and dangerous psychological phenomena in human relationships. Habituation.
Habituation.
Yes. They ignore their partner's needs because they have fundamentally taken their partner for granted.
Taking someone for granted. We hear that phrase all the time in English. But let us dig into the actual neurology of it. Why is the human brain wired to take things for granted?
We discussed sensory adaptation earlier with the perfume room, right?
Yes, getting used to the smell.
Habituation is the broader cognitive version of that. The human brain is an incredibly efficient prediction machine. Its primary goal is to keep you alive while burning as few calories as possible.
Okay, so it wants to save energy.
To do this, the brain scans the environment and categorizes things. If something is new, unpredictable, or potentially dangerous, the brain focuses massive amounts of conscious attention on it.
Like driving a car in a new city in the pouring rain. You are hyper-focused, the radio is turned off, you are gripping the steering wheel.
Exactly, because it is unpredictable. But if something is predictable, safe, and unchanging, the brain decides, I understand this completely. It is not a threat. I do not need to waste conscious energy analyzing it.
It filters it out.
Yes, the brain literally filters it out of your conscious awareness so it can scan the horizon for new threats.
Which is why you can drive your daily commute to work and suddenly realize you do not remember the last 10 minutes of the drive.
Precisely. Your brain was on autopilot because the route was familiar.
Now, apply that biological survival mechanism to a 10-year marriage.
Yes, think about that. Your partner is the most predictable, safe, familiar element in your environment.
Therefore, your brain naturally, biologically filters them out.
It does. You stop really looking at them. You stop noticing their efforts. You assume they will simply always be there, functioning exactly as they always have.
That is a terrifying thought, because it means that taking a partner for granted isn't really a character flaw.
No, it is the default setting of the human brain.
Wow. So falling out of love is actually the brain functioning correctly in terms of energy conservation.
That is the exact paradox we are dealing with. To stay in love, you have to actively fight your own neurology.
So how do we do that? I am asking this on behalf of our listener. Because we want to feel safe and familiar with our partner, right? We want that comfortable predictability.
Of course we do.
But how do we achieve that safety without our brain turning them into invisible furniture?
The only known antidote to habituation is conscious, deliberate appreciation.
Appreciation.
And I do not mean just feeling vaguely grateful. I mean active, cognitive overriding of your brain's filter.
Can you give me a concrete example of how to override the filter? What does that look like in daily life?
It is the practice of intentionally looking at the mundane and forcing yourself to recognize its value.
Like what?
Let's use an everyday example. When you first buy a new piece of art for your home, you look at it every day. You admire it.
Right.
But a year later, it becomes just part of the wall.
Mm.
Treating a partner like part of the wall destroys the emotional bond.
So how do we stop them from becoming part of the wall?
Let us say your partner makes coffee every single morning. Your brain has habituated to this. It expects the coffee. If the coffee isn't there, you get annoyed.
Yes, that is classic habituation.
To fight this, you must pause, look at the cup of coffee, and consciously remind yourself, my partner took 5 minutes out of their life to do a task of service for me. They did not have to do that.
You have to force yourself to think the thought.
Yes, and then you must verbalize it. You look them in the eye and say, thank you for making the coffee. I really appreciate it.
It sounds so simple, almost childishly simple.
But what you are really doing is forcing your brain to bring your partner out of the background noise category and back into the active conscious focus category.
You are forcing the brain to see them again.
Exactly. Without that daily active practice of spoken appreciation, the habituation takes over completely. You become blind to their value.
When you are blind to their value, you stop putting in effort, you stop meeting their needs, and the slow drain of oxygen accelerates.
That is exactly how the cycle works.
And when habituation reaches its absolute maximum level, the relationship enters a phase that I find deeply haunting. Our sources describe it as the moment when love devolves into mere routine.
When the relationship becomes a habit rather than a connection.
Yes, the polite roommate phase.
The polite roommate phase is a very accurate description.
Let us examine the internal reality of living in this stage. You share a physical living space. You might coordinate grocery shopping. You divide the electricity bill.
You might even still ask, how was your day?
Yeah,
Out of sheer habit.
right. But the unique, vital architecture of a romantic bond, the vulnerability, the shared dreams, the deep, knowing laughter, all of that is completely hollowed out.
It is an incredibly desolate way to live. And the psychological burden of this stage is a very specific type of loneliness.
Let us talk about that loneliness, because it is strange, isn't it? Why does being physically near someone make you feel even more isolated?
It is because of the contrast.
Con
Yes. If you are single, living alone in an apartment, and you feel lonely on a Friday night, your brain understands why. The physical reality matches the emotional reality.
You are alone, therefore you feel alone. It makes logical sense.
But when you are in the polite roommate phase, the physical reality and the emotional reality are entirely at odds.
You are lying in a bed, physically only 6 inches away from a human being you have known for a decade. The warmth of their body is right there.
Yet emotionally, they are galaxies away.
Galaxies away.
You feel like you cannot reach out and tell them your deepest fear because you know they will not mirror it. They will not catch you.
That contrast, the physical proximity highlighting the emotional absence, makes the loneliness exponentially sharper.
Yeah.
It's like dying of thirst while floating in the middle of the ocean. Water is everywhere, but you cannot drink any of it.
And the most tragic part of this routine stage is how long it can last.
Really? How long?
Years, decades even.
Yeah.
Because there is no explosive crisis, no infidelity, no screaming matches, no abuse. There is no clear catalyst to leave.
It is just a comfortable, quiet sadness.
It is a slow numbing. People can exist in this holding pattern for 5, 10, or 20 years. They convince themselves that this is just what long-term marriage looks like. They normalize the emptiness.
Until one day, the cognitive dissonance simply becomes too heavy, or an external event shakes them awake, and they finally acknowledge that the love did not just recently die, it evaporated a decade ago.
Which brings us to the synthesis of everything we have unpacked today, the ultimate answer to our core question.
Why do people fall out of love?
Exactly.
We have looked at so many pieces. The biological fading of the dopamine fireworks.
We have examined the muscle atrophy of the comfort trap.
We have traced the software bugs of swallowed communication, right? The pebbles in the shoe.
We have mapped the 1-degree shifts of changing priorities and values.
We have felt the slow hypoxia, the lack of oxygen from unmet needs, and the blinding filter of habituation.
And when you layer all of these mechanisms on top of each other, a singular, undeniable truth emerges from the data.
What is that truth?
Falling out of love is never a singular event, and it is rarely the result of a single failure. It is always a combination of small things over time.
Less effort, less communication, changing priorities.
Ultimately, Connections fade not because love magically disappears into thin air, but because it is not actively maintained. It is the cumulative result of chronic passive inaction.
This leads to a realization that fundamentally changes how I view relationships. And I think it is crucial for our listener to hear this. People talk about love as if it is a noun, an object.
Elaborate on that distinction for us.
Well, we use language that treats love like a diamond ring. We say we found love, we say we fell into it. The implication is that love is a solid, permanent object.
Right.
Once you find the diamond, you put it in your pocket. You can ignore it, you can leave it in a drawer, but the diamond will always remain a diamond. It will always be hard and shiny.
But the psychology and biology we have discussed today prove that is entirely false.
Completely false.
Yeah.
Love is not a noun. Love is a verb. It is a continuous action.
It is not a diamond.
No, it is not a diamond. It is a living organism. It is more like a fire.
A fire. I like that.
You can start a massive roaring fire with a lot of dry wood and lighter fluid. That is the early dopamine phase, the fireworks.
Yeah.
But if you walk away from the fire, assuming it will just burn forever on its own, it will eventually consume its fuel and turn to cold ash. It must be actively fed.
That is the ultimate takeaway. The fading of connection is not a mystery of the universe. It is not a magical curse. It is the natural, inevitable result of treating an active process as if it were a passive object.
Love starves when it is not fed.
It starves when it is not fed with attention, communication, and appreciation.
I want to pause here because I know we have discussed a lot of heavy, somewhat daunting psychological mechanisms today. This might feel overwhelming to someone listening.
It is a lot to process.
However, I actually find this conclusion to be profoundly hopeful and deeply empowering.
Why is that? Where do you find the hope in this data?
Think about the alternative. If love truly was just a magical feeling that randomly descended upon us and then randomly vanished one day for no logical reason, we would be completely helpless.
Yeah, it is true.
We would be victims of fate, just crossing our fingers and hoping our partner does not wake up one day and stop loving us.
We would have no agency, no control over our own lives.
Exactly. But because we know that love fades due to a lack of maintenance, due to atrophy, habituation, and swallowed words, it means we have the power to stop it.
Yes, we do.
It means that the survival of the relationship is largely within our control. If love is an action, then we can choose to act.
We can choose to override our habituation by practicing vocal appreciation, like thanking them for the coffee.
We can choose to speak up about the tiny software bugs before they crash the system, take the pebbles out of the shoe.
We can choose to regularly check our maps and ensure our values and goals are still aligned.
We can choose to put down the phone when our partner walks through the door and exercise that connection muscle for 10 seconds.
The power is entirely in our hands. A long-term bond is an ongoing, deliberate project. It is the work of a lifetime, but it is work that we are fully capable of doing.
It is a shift from asking, do they still love me, to asking, how am I actively loving them today?
What a beautiful, actionable way to frame it.
Thank you. We have covered an immense amount of ground today. We have looked under the hood of human emotion and examined the complex machinery of how we attach, how we disconnect, and how we can repair.
It is a complex machine, but a manageable one when you understand the parts.
As we bring this exploration to a close, I want to leave our listener with one final provocative question. This thought emerged from the very end of our source material, and it is something that will likely stay with you long after this discussion ends.
It is a question that challenges our fundamental definitions.
Think about the couples you know who have separated. Think about the distances that have grown in your own life. When a long-term relationship finally ends and the warmth is completely gone, do people actually fall out of love? Or do they simply just stop trying?
That is a deeply clarifying distinction. Is it a loss of emotion or a cessation of effort?
To you, our listener who has engaged with this challenging material and explored these concepts with us today, I invite you to carry that question with you. Reflect quietly on this conversation.
Which of the reasons discussed today do you think is the biggest cause of distance between two people?
Reflect on the mechanisms we discussed. The slow fading of the chemical fireworks, the muscle atrophy of the comfort trap, the silent accumulation of the software bugs, the hypoxia of unmet needs, and the blinding filter of habituation.
Ask yourself which of these silent mechanisms you have witnessed in your own life or in the lives of those around you. Awareness is always the very first step toward change.
Thank you so much for joining us on this careful, unhurried journey. We deeply appreciate the time and focus you bring to these conversations. We hope the concepts we unpacked today give you new tools and clearer language to understand the complex, beautiful, and sometimes fragile nature of human connection. Until next time, keep observing, keep asking the hard questions, and above all, keep actively taking care of the people you choose to walk beside.